Hey, I'm Stephanie Brown. I'm a real estate broker, mom, wife, and a serial entrepreneur. Welcome to It's More of a Guideline, a podcast where we talk about navigating the world of entrepreneurship, relationships, health and fitness, and whatever else may come up. It's honest, raw, and authentic. I'm Stephanie Brown, a real estate broker, mom, wife, and serial entrepreneur. Find us wherever you listen to your podcast. So hi, Mel.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Thanks for coming today.
No problem.
Yeah.
Good time.
So, do you want to just introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Sure.
Okay.
My name is Melanie Watson.
Uh-huh.
I own All In Gym, which is a strength training facility in Midlothian, Virginia. And I used to train you.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. I'm a mom.
Yeah.
I'm a wife.
Uh-huh.
Have been in the fitness industry for over 20 years now.
Okay. So how did that start? How did you get into the fitness
Okay,
industry?
so I actually graduated. Everybody thinks I have just been literally doing this since I started breathing.
Since you were born.
Right.
Yeah.
But I actually got my degree in college in criminal justice.
Okay.
And I was sure that's what I was going to spend my life doing. My dad's retired FBI, so I've kind of
Okay.
grown up in the law enforcement world.
Is that why?
So-
So, like at your gym, there seems to be a lot of that influence.
First responder,
Uh-huh.
heroes,
Okay.
yeah, and also my husband is
Okay,
a narcotics detective with the city.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that.
So, yep, and SWAT and everything. So I think I married my dad basically.
Right.
So I got a criminal justice degree, and then about 3 years into it, I don't really know what you want to do when
Sure.
you're 21 anyway,
Right.
most people. And so I worked at a law firm that did like criminal based stuff, and that's not the avenue I wanted to take. That was just like I didn't know how
You
to
needed
get-
a job.
Yeah, I needed something.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple years, but fitness has always been just a massive part of my life. I grew up playing sports.
What did you
and
play?
I played soccer.
Okay.
Primarily, I was a cheerleader all through middle school and high
okay.
school. I know that's something that kind of shocks everybody when I tell
Yeah.
them that.
Yeah.
And then even into my young adult life, it's just been a huge part of me. So when I graduated from college, I played co-ed travel soccer. Then I got
Okay.
into co-ed football, flag football.
Oh, fun. Did you ever play indoor soccer?
What's that?
Did you ever play indoor
I played
soccer?
indoor and I hated it.
It's rough.
I hate it. It wasn't
Yeah,
for me.
my
I
daughter played like a couple little seasons.
Rules are totally different.
Uh-huh.
So when you're used to
Right.
the big open
Yeah.
outdoor world, indoor is very claustrophobic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, just grew up playing sports, and so it's always just been a big part of me. But actually, my freshman year of college, I've just always been petite my whole life. I was small. And, I just thought genetics. And then I I went away to college my freshman year, and
Yeah.
soccer stopped, and cheerleading stopped, and beer drinking started, and late night pizza
Yeah.
delivery started, and I literally put on 30 pounds my
Yeah.
freshman year.
I can remember when that happened too.
And it was shocking.
Yeah,
It
you're
was
like, wait a minute.
shocking.
I'm a skinny girl.
And that's when I started diving into nutrition.
Yeah.
So I was kind of young when I started picking up some books and starting to understand what it means to fuel yourself. And so even though I was working at the law firm, it was still a prevalent thing. And I remember sitting down with my mom when I was working at the law firm, and I was like, I got to figure out what I want to do because this isn't it.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, all right, well, you need to write down one line of things you love and that mean something to you in your life. And then the other side, it's things you don't really care about.
Yeah.
And everything gravitated towards doing something in the fitness industry. I thought God, now I'm going to have to go back to school and be a PE teacher.
Right.
I'm going to have to go back to school and be
PT or
for
something.
PT
Right.
or. And so that's when I decided, so I was maybe 25. And I decided to get certified. But I was still working at the law firm. So I got certified, and then I started working at this gym in DC on the weekends, just kind of getting my feet wet.
Yeah.
And then when I turned 27, I cold turkey quit the law firm, and I started working at this box gym, going back to making
Yeah, that's a big difference,
It
right?
was massive. It was a huge leap of faith because no 401k, no hourly rate.
Right.
You're just paid as you coach.
Yeah, and also that like now there's like boutique gyms everywhere, but like then like
yeah, I mean, like
Golds
I'm a dinosaur, so like this was a long time ago, and but even then, you would make like when you work at a box gym as a personal trainer, you still even now today you don't make very much money. You make a small percentage. So I think I was making like $12 every time I would.
Oh man,
Train then
someone.
I met my first husband, and he was super supportive. So like, he was doing the full-time gig, so I could like kind of just get my feet wet with it.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant, and then so like everything just kind of slowed down a little bit.
Right.
So I think it was right after Zoe was born. Then I took another leap of faith.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to do this on my own. Which at that point was like really kind of stupid because I hadn't been doing it that long.
Yeah.
Like consistently, because I had to like break a little bit with having a kid. But somehow I pulled it off. And so I worked at a small studio that I shared space with a couple of good guy friends that were also trainers. So we shared the rent. I had about, maybe 15 to 20 private clients. Some of them trained together, some of them didn't. Ran a few boot camps on the weekend. And I just did that consistently for like 10 years.
Okay. Was this in Richmond or in
This
DC?
was in Northern Virginia, like right outside of DC in Arlington. And then my now husband, I separated, got a divorce, that whole thing. And then my now husband, we actually grew up together in Northern Virginia, but he moved to Richmond a really long time ago. And when we started dating, and then we got engaged about a year and a half later, and then I knew that I was going to have to move to Richmond.
Right.
And I was not pleased.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a different vibe.
Right.
So people that are from Northern Virginia are more city oriented.
Yeah.
And
what part of Northern Virginia were you in?
So I was in North Arlington.
Okay.
So it's like
my college roommate was from Ruston.
Yeah. So that my sister lives very close to there. So I'm talking like I live 2 miles from downtown DC.
It's a big difference. Yeah.
You just like your mindset is different. Like the way you do things is different. The way you think is different. But it's also a whole lot more expensive. So like when you're blending families, he couldn't come there. Traffic.
Yeah.
Everybody's least favorite thing about it. But so anyway, we got married, and I moved to Mosley. And for the first 6 or so months, I was coming back to my studio in Northern Virginia on the weekends. Like I would leave on Thursday and work through the weekend and come back because and my husband was super supportive. He's like, you don't have to do that. I'll carry us till you get your feet wet. But I have been raised with a tremendous amount of independence. So relying on other people is really hard for me.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I also wasn't quite ready to let go of my clients up there and, my life up there. So
you still kept a little piece of it by doing that.
Yeah, I got to see my family on the weekends still, and my sisters and my brother and I are all really close. So it kind of just like helped me transition a little bit better.
Yeah. Instead of ripping the Band-Aid off.
Ripping the Band-Aid off, I don't think would have worked very well for me. But then I also just threw myself out there on my community page, our new neighborhood page, and I was like, hey, new girl in town, I'm going to start doing a little bit of training in my garage for anybody that's interested. And like 10 women bit right on it. And I mostly still train all 10 of those women. So that's really...
Yeah, that's
some
amazing.
of them have gone, but for the most part, I still see them weekly. They now just go to All In.
Yeah.
So we went from that, and then I was approached by someone that was looking for a head trainer for their other gym. Which I really don't feel like promoting, but if I'm just
you don't have to say it.
A good human,
okay.
I can just say it. But I started working for this.
We'll bleep it out.
I started working for a franchise, and I think I mostly did it because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just, and if I'm being completely honest, and that's why I'm on this podcast, the formatting and the programming, and it was not for me. And I'm not necessarily a good student.
Yeah.
And so, once I started working there, and I wasn't having the best experience with the franchise portion of it, but I immediately fell in love with the clientele.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, as you know, like being in a business where, you grow these relationships, and then they end up being more important than your own mental health sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they're your friends.
They're your people,
whole
right?
life,
You care about them. You care about their
yeah.
well-being, and
That's what makes you a good coach. Because
right. You just have to have a genuine care for people, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always prided myself on having that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I stayed there for 2 years, and then I finally COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hit a brick wall with being treated a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? It's time for another leap
YOLO.
of faith.
I remember this. You had written on your social media page one day that someone told you that you would never make it. That they told you that if you went out on your own, that it would never work.
It was my boss.
Yeah.
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 And nothing lights a fire under a woman's ass
Right.
more than being told
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
she can't do something.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll never forget him saying that. That will stay with me forever because, and hindsight, I'm kind of grateful because it shook me out of the comfort of just staying where I was for the sake of the clientele. And, you have to do a lot of things in discomfort to get where you want and deserve to be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was at that moment. And I had, again, the support and backing from my husband. He was very supportive. He hated me working there because he just saw the other side of it, the sadness and the constant fatigue,
Disappointment.
and the disappointment and the physical beatdown. I'm working 80 hours a week, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was like, "Go, do your thing. I've got you." And that's a really great thing to have when you want to take a leap of faith. So during COVID, I just kind of came up with my plan.
Did you start doing virtual workouts
I
then,
hadn't started. So I put my notice in at this place. And then even at that time, I didn't have like a true and genuine business plan, but I also was under an obligation to where I couldn't.
So did they have a non-compete?
They did.
Okay. And so, but you had a community there. You had a following there, right?
I did. And so I didn't, it's funny though, because when I gave him a month's notice so that it would adequate time to find someone.
Sure.
Of course, so everybody under the sun is like, what are you going to do? Because I'm going to go. And I'm like, I don't know. And that was an actual real thing.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to do something. And I kept saying to them, I'm not retiring.
Right.
But I don't have
That's all you can say.
But it is legally all I can say. Yeah. And I did stick to that. But it was also I didn't have a location. I didn't have a business name. I had a plan because I've been doing this forever that I know what works. And so my plan was just to roll with my education, my knowledge, somehow turn that into a business.
Right.
And on a larger scale than what I had in Arlington really was my plan.
Yeah. And you knew what you didn't want, right?
I knew exactly what I didn't want. I know what doesn't work long term.
Right.
And, meanwhile, in the last 20 years, I've gotten 1,000,001 taken 1,000,001 courses and certifications and exercise nutrition and, all of these other things that I just keep compiling into my back pocket to create something really special.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2020, November, I left that other place in October. And in November, I came up with a name and I blasted that on social media without it being connected to my name.
Okay. Yep. So just a business page.
Just a business page, but it was new on the block. So I think a lot of people just were made the assumption it was me.
Yeah. Connected some dots.
And then I have a business partner. And so that business partner, we were just going around and looking at locations. And because of my non-compete, I had to be a certain distance away. Okay. So super hard to find that.
Yeah. And stay in the area that you want.
Stay in the area where I know people.
Right.
Right.
Where they'll drive to.
Right.
So, yeah.
Correct. Which is, I find even more and more challenging even now.
Wow.
Great place, bad location. You get a lot of that. But so my business partner and I settled on a location, and it's it was a dump. A dump. And I was like, man, this is going to take forever, but
Yeah.
she's going to be worth it. Mm-hmm. And it did take a long time.
Yeah.
So I was doing small training groups in my garage while we were building out. So it's like everything came back full circle.
Right.
And I'm doing these small groups in my garage with one of my other coaches who is still with me. And we trained about 80 people a day.
Wow. That's a lot of people in your garage.
It was just a lot. That whole time frame kind of makes me laugh because I look back and I'm like, I must have been crazy.
Yeah.
I literally must have been nuts
Right.
to do this. But we did it, and they, most of those 80 people are still with me.
Well, that's another thing, like, about the community there that you've created. Like, how do you, because, so I'm like a serial gym hopper. I know that's every gym owner's like, but I do, like, I'll do
okay.
12 months, 15
Boredom
months
sets
tops,
in, you want to try something
and I
new.
do something
Yep,
new, yeah.
absolutely.
But one thing I know from being that way is that usually in gyms there is like a hierarchy of like a clique and like a cool group, and then everyone else is just kind of not in the cool group. But like I never saw that there. I don't know if that exists there, but I didn't see it. But there is a really great community there of like everyone is really, really, really supportive.
Yeah, and I actually think, I think that can start from the top down.
Yeah.
I think in the way that you treat people consistently and fairly, like that, this kind of spreads. Like, love spreads, joy spreads, just as much as gossip spreads and mean girl stuff spreads. So, and I am so anti mean girl. I can't. I'm a girl's girl. I'm a guy's girl. Like, I'm just for the people, right?
Yeah.
And I think like all of my coaches are the same way, where and my whole staff, I have said from the beginning, I can coach you how to coach. I can't coach you how to be a good human.
Right.
Like that's just innately inside of you. And what one of my actual best friends in life, she was like, it's funny because one of your biggest assets is also one of your biggest downfalls. And she was like, you make everybody feel like you're their best friend.
Right.
And because you just love people so much. So sometimes that can be a huge disappointment when they realize that they're actually not
your best friend, they're just a client. But also, like, do you find, because I also know I've worked out in gym environments where the owner was the main attraction. And so when you're not there, it's hard for the gym to run like that. And people only want to take your classes so how do you
that's
get around
that's
that?
actually consistently, I think, will always be a hard part. But here's what I say to people so they can understand, where I'm at. Like, being a gym owner is one thing. Being a coach is another thing. Doing both of those things at the same time is really freaking hard.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming. I'm still working 12-hour days. I still work 7 days a week. Like, that's never going to go away because there's at least always going to be the business side of things to do. I've pulled back my coaching to where I'm only coaching 20 camps a week, which is still a lot.
Still a lot.
It's a lot.
They're hour-long camps, basically.
Right.
And then that's not even talking about programming.
No, that's all done in the evening at home. And I think that's the trickiest part, is that when people say, oh, you're not working nights anymore, you're not doing mid-mornings anymore, like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I know.
So sometimes that can be like the most frustrating thing to hear, because who do you think's running this place? Why do you think
who's coming up with these workouts?
Right. Who's paying the bills? Who's doing the program? Who's consulting in nutrition? Like, all of it. So, but I will say this. There is a strong relationship with a coach and their clients. So when someone is used to you, that's what they want, right? Like, when I was coaching one-on-one in Arlington, if I were just to not show up one day and some other random coach come in there, it would be like, wait a second, where's Melanie?
Right.
So I get it. I fully get it. Like, you like who you like. You gravitate who you gravitate to. That's why I am super selective with the coaches that I choose. Now, like Laura, one of my coaches, she's amazing. She's completely different from me. She's softer spoken.
Right.
She's very kind and wildly patient. She has all these qualities that I do not have. And so there's people now that gravitate to her. So if I were to step in and coach 9, 10, or noon, they may be like, where's Laura?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, you just get used to who you get used to, and that becomes your person.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I coach all early morning now. I've had to shift back again to just coaching like which is all the type A
Totally
people, right? And those are my people,
right? Yep,
right?
I get
like
it. Yep.
I can handle that crowd. I am that crowd,
and they want you,
and they want someone that's going to bark a little bit more
sure. Mm-hmm.
and be a little bit louder, So I think the people that come at 5, 6, and 7, are the people that gravitate towards my type of personality. The people that come at 9, 10, and noon are a little more laid back,
right?
A little more softer spoken. Mm-hmm. They're Laura's people.
Slower pace, maybe.
A little slower pace. Yep. Like less crowds. Because the early morning ones are always going to be your busiest.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So I think just naturally, I think it kind of organically happens where people will just, and I think that's the beauty of having different personalities on the floor coaching.
Yeah. So then do you see another location in the future, or
1,000% no.
Okay.
I get asked that all of the time. And I think like I'm almost 50 and I've been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah.
And you being a business owner, like it's very, very time consuming. And I still have a terrible personal life, work-life balance.
Right.
And I'm just not that thirsty anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
we're
maybe
tired now.
I'm tired.
We're tired.
Had I maybe like opened All In 10 or 15 years ago, that would probably be a very different story. I'd probably still be super thirsty. But I've never, like, everybody wants to be comfortable. Nobody wants to be financially unstable. Nobody wants to have that, that constant concern. That's just the point that I'd like to get at. I'd like to pay for my daughter to go to South Carolina and not stress out every 5 seconds about where that money's going to come from.
Right.
But I'm just not like that thirsty anymore. To
no, I know. I feel that too.
And I also am a control freak. And so whenever someone asks me, "Are you going to open another location?" Like the what is it called?
How could you clone yourself?
I'm a control freak.
Clone yourself. Yeah.
You can't be in 2 places at once.
Right.
And I love, like you just said, that community feeling. I love the mom and pop feel that All In has.
Yeah.
There's only one.
Right.
The community is tight. The coaches are tight. The staff is tight. Like we all get along so well. There's no drama, and it's an all-female staff. There's no beef. Everybody is so supportive of one another. And I think like the bigger you get, the more you risk losing that type of feeling,
Yeah, definitely.
When I look at other gyms that are franchised, I'm certain that the one I worked at and the actual, like the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, I am so certain that is not what the initial owners intended.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and that's what happens when you expand. You lose control.
Yeah.
So I'd rather keep my sweet little gym.
Yeah.
My sweet little gym.
I totally get that. So you do nutrition coaching as well, right? And you do that one-on-one?
I do.
Okay.
So I know after doing this for as long as I have that is number one. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
There will never be a format of exercise that is more valuable than good nutrition.
Yeah.
Like there's just not, but then after years and years of literally doing everything, like I myself personally am just going to gravitate towards what I love, right? I love lifting weights. That's going to be, that's where my mental health is under control. Like just nothing feels better for me than a good lift, right? But I've also found over time that that's what works.
Right.
So
yeah,
you can cardio yourself
isn't
till
it
you're
funny
purple,
isn't it funny how trends in fitness work? And like I've had this conversation with someone else on this podcast already about cardio was like the shit, right?
80s, man. Let's go.
That was what we did. It was
Yeah.
Stairmaster,
How many
anything.
step classes can you take?
Yeah, any kind of that. And it's just not where it's at. But it's so hard, especially like women in our age group, to make them understand lifting weights.
It might be the biggest challenge of my life that I am still continually fighting against.
Hit your head up against the wall.
I do, like this brick wall. Like yes, it's constant because it's like, It makes me so sad to see women measure the value of the work they just put in based off of how many calories they just burned. Mm-hmm. It's a really, really tough thing for me. And it still is very present even now, oh my God, my watch says I only burned 250 calories. And I'm like, well, God, it doesn't even count then, right? Like, where's the value in what you're doing? But that's why I spend, like, I do this weekly writing. It's called Mondays with Mel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love those.
And it is mostly focused on nutrition, a lot with like habits and creating habits and, exercise and, but mostly nutrition, because I'm really trying to drive home to women, especially like in the phase that I'm in right now, this perimenopausal phase that so many women are stepping into and not making the attachment that so much of these symptoms, all of this additional weight gain, all of these things that you're feeling can be combated by having a better understanding of how your nutrition affects your hormones. And it's so big for me that, like, I wish I just had a higher platform to yell it from the rooftops, because Mondays with Mel is just not big enough. And it's just,
well, it's also, you can't wait until you're 50 and be a complete shit show with your health and then expect to go get blood work done and your metabolic health to be like in tip-top shape.
Right.
Or
correct.
like turn it around like that.
Correct. Or like cortisol is just officially taken over, but you have no understanding of why.
Why? And it's not anything to do with how you've eaten the last 30 years.
Correct.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and everything starts with habits. And so, I've had people join and quit their membership. That's just part of the cycle.
Yeah.
But a lot of, some of the reason that people leave is they're like, well, it's just not enough cardio. And that is probably the hardest one for me to swallow, because I'm like, on purpose.
Right.
Yeah. Like on purpose. Yeah. But you just can't make people feel a certain way. They have to come to that conclusion all on their own. And that is probably the toughest pill for me to swallow, is that I'm not going to reach everybody. I'm not going to break into everybody's brains. A lot of women are still going to say, well, I still want I'll just go run 10 more miles and then I can eat whatever I want. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Have you ever read the book Forever Strong, or are you familiar with Gabrielle Lyons? She has a podcast and she speaks a lot, and that book is like, it's kind of life-changing if you've never heard of that. Like, it's all about lifting weights and eating protein, really, which is the two things that,
I'm constantly
don't want to
preaching,
do.
Right. Or the other detrimental end of this is like the deep caloric deficit, where we're talking like 1,200 calories a day.
I've done that.
Every woman's done that.
And time again throughout
my
life.
Ozempic and everything else that's still on the scene right now that is like encouraging women to eat less, to like disappear.
Yeah.
Which nothing, again, makes me more angry than a woman
It's hard because
disappearing.
Like, a calorie deficit works, right? Like, as you can lose weight doing that, But it's not it's like this desire to be skinny and muscular at the same time, like you just can't do both.
I think
it's so hard.
You can, you have to do it intelligently, and that's what I'm really trying very hard to help educate, especially women on, is that if your goal is to be skinny, then sure, starve yourself.
Right.
But if your goal is to continue to have a sufficient amount of muscle mass, to take care of your internal health, to clear brain fog, to all of these other benefits, starving yourself isn't going to get you there.
Right.
You're going to look a certain kind of way, but in our industry, we like to call that skinny fat.
Right.
And that is what's happening to people that are eating well below their basal metabolic rate. Your body is literally eating its own muscle. And it's just such a hard thing to make people understand in a world where, I don't like to use the word shortcut, but it is what it is. When people are diving into these medical treatments and all of these things that are just advertising for you to just disappear.
Yeah, and they're also not working for a lot of people too.
They're not working, and you don't know the long-term side effects yet. So are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Mm-hmm. That could be a whole nother
I
podcast.
I know.
Super passionate about that one.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well,
But
how do you change the mindset of from, wanting to be skinny to wanting to be strong?
well, there's, obviously, there's a lot of misconception about women lifting weights and it creating a level of bulk. Or I don't want to be bulky, so I don't want to lift weights.
Yeah.
And that's, so that's another, like, I
It's
think
crazy.
just,
I've been lifting weights for 30 years
and you
trying to
ain't
get bulky. I'm
No,
trying
but
though.
you're strong, and
Yeah.
you look strong. You're not skinny fat. Like, and I think, there's so many different walls I'm trying to break down, and it's just like I'm literally just taking one of those tiny little
Yeah.
chisels, and you just break it down one person at a time. And I think at my gym, I will never go over and hand somebody heavier weights. I think that's very irresponsible, actually, as a coach, to do that, because there's a lot of different factors into how much someone can lift in any one particular day. Because you can
Yeah.
lift it last Tuesday doesn't mean you can lift it this Tuesday.
Yeah, I know that.
And so I think that's one of the most irresponsible things that I see coaches do.
Or you don't know how they slept or what they ate or if they drink alcohol.
Nothing. There's
or
a
like all
million.
these
Where are you on
things.
your
Yeah.
menstrual cycle?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of different factors that indicate how strong you are on that particular day. But what I do constantly preach at my gym is progressive overload, whatever that means for you on that particular day. But you will not get stronger if you do not get uncomfortable.
Can you just explain what progressive overload
Sure.
is?
Progressive overload is when you put your body under stress in increments, right? So if let's say you're doing bicep curls and we go through 3 rounds of basically everything at my gym. And let's say, you start with 15s and then you get through that 3rd round and you're still using 15s. You're only ever going to be as strong and lean as those 15-pound weights will let you be.
Right.
You're only ever going to create enough muscle that your body will allow you, particularly at that 15-pound weight. So if you progressively overload, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in a day, it has to be over time.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're staying comfortable, your body cannot build muscle.
Right. So what if you can't go up in weight? Then what do you do to
you can
create?
change your tempo. You can slow things down. You can speed things up. You just have to change something.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time. You don't necessarily have to go up in weight, but you got to change something to make it more challenging.
Right.
Right. And typically you're going to get the best results if that change is load, right? Over time.
Sure.
But like metabolically, the more muscle you have in your body, the more calories you and I are both burning sitting here doing absolutely nothing. So if you're skinny fat, because you're undercutting your calories and you're eating well below your basal metabolic rate, you're going to burn calories only while you're doing activity, because your body doesn't have enough muscle to sustain calorie burn during non-activity movement, right? So I tell people all the time, the more you lift in this gym, the more calories you're going to burn sitting on your ass for the rest of your day doing your job. Right? That sometimes will be enough to light a fire, even just in that moment of time. But if it's just that moment of time that I'm trying to reach you, perfect.
Yeah.
Job done.
Right.
But I think a lot of times what else helps is like people just get sick of me saying the same thing over and over again,
Well, do you think that the Mondays with Mel is an easier way to reach people that it's not one-on-one?
It gets shared quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I usually am inspired by a conversation or something that's happened earlier in the week with my one-on-one nutrition. Because I don't rush them out of there. I will sit there with the same person 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. Sometimes it turns into a FaceTime later because we haven't had enough time. But I just know that this is the one thing that women have the most amount of misinformation on.
Yeah.
And men too, right? I coach a lot of men on their nutrition as well. But I feel like if I can get in their head on just this one subject, that it's a game changer. And it's, so then we put up our transformation stories of the people that have followed these methods. You'll never, ever, ever see me put up a transformation story on someone that I know is, I don't want to say doing things the wrong way, because that sounds very kind of crappy
No,
of me.
I know what you mean.
But if you're doing these things that I know are not sustainable, that I know are not healthy,
right.
I'm never going to highlight you. Because even though you've entrusted me with your workouts, you haven't entrusted me with your methods of weight loss. And sadly, I've seen so many people take these, quick fix methods and then gain it all right back.
Yeah.
And then some.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you're dealing with that level of mental health, helping them come back from that. So I think a big thing that I like to do is share stories of people that have done sufficient nutrition work, sufficient work with lifting weights. And no one can ever argue that a lean, strong body is way more appealing than a lean, skinny, fat body.
Loosey body. Loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
So when you're doing nutrition counseling, are you doing macros or?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. I sit down. We have an in-body scanner now, which is fabulous.
That's cool. Yeah.
So we do in-body scan, and then I still do physical tape measurements because I believe in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the very first thing I ask every single person when they sit down is, what would you like to see happen in a year? Because that's how long you have to scan out in time.
And also, can you just highlight how hard it is to build muscle?
It's so hard.
So
And it's so
hard.
hard. And people get so quickly and easily frustrated if it doesn't happen in your first month or two or whatever.
6 weeks. If we're not gaining 10 pounds of muscle, we're not doing
it right. Then we
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah.
Then we restart doing some other method, right? It takes forever. I've been lifting weights for 20 years, and I'm still trying to get bigger butt.
Yeah, I
Still
know.
trying to get stronger glutes. It takes a
Right.
long time. But the value of what else is happening in your body when your body is made of more muscle than it is fat, your internal health, your organs, your brain, it's just crazy what happens to you. You start lifting weights in your 30s, you're fending off Alzheimer's in your 70s.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're not, and you don't put your health and, prioritize what works first, women are just impatient. We're just an impatient culture.
Yeah.
We want it now.
Right.
We want it right now. And if we've been lifting weights for 6 weeks and our whole world hasn't changed, then it's
Right.
definitely not working.
Especially, I talk to a lot of people who also haven't changed anything in their nutrition, but
Yes.
Want the gym. At this age, that ain't happening.
Nope.
It's just not
And,
happening.
I see women get frustrated that they've put on weight while working out at my gym. And I'm like, well, what have you changed
Right.
in your habits outside of here?
Do you encourage people to track what they're eating?
I do and I don't. So yes, I do, because I always say information is power.
Yeah, you can't
When you
know,
don't
right?
know, you
Yeah.
don't know. And we overshoot our shot 10 times out of 10 if you're not using a measuring cup. If you're eyeballing
Right.
things, you are definitely not in a deficit.
Right,
You're
yeah.
most likely in a surplus. And you could still eat too much of a good thing. Right?
Yes.
You could be piling in the
Totally.
protein and whatever and still be in a calorie surplus. You're not going to see anything
If you're eating
happen.
3,000 calories,
You're still eating
good
3,000
food, you're
calories.
still-
Yes.
yeah.
So I do, but I have found over the years that it creates way too much emotional stress for some people. So then instead of I'll say, okay, well, let's just choose a few things to dial in on. Let's start with eliminating
Right.
one bad
Sugar
habit.
or something.
Yeah, and I think sugar is what's so detrimental to our country in general. So that's usually what I'll have people. I'm like, all right, well, let's start here. Let's pay attention to how much added sugar you're taking in a day.
And then people are like, well, I really don't have any sugar in my
And
diet.
then I'm
and then
like,
you're
bullshit.
like, do you have ketchup? Do you have
I'm
Starbucks?
like,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
Do you get
Do you
fatigued
know what
from
is
this
in? Do you know what
conversation
sugar is
over
in?
and over and over?
I don't ever I have a tremendous amount of patience for people when they're trying.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I don't
yeah.
have a tremendous amount of patience for people that get angry that they're not losing weight, lifting 3 days a week,
right,
and not doing anything else.
Right. Right.
I don't have a ton of patience for that.
Yeah.
And I know there's all kinds of kinds in this world, and is some people, I have one particular client who I've trained for the entire time I've lived in this area. So she was at the other place, and then she followed me here, and in her words, am I allowed to cuss?
Yes.
And she says, she just eats like an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? So she was always doing the same strength training, probably not lifting to her greatest potential.
Well, yeah.
Because she was
And you feel
100
like
pounds
shit,
overweight.
yeah.
And she feel like shit. You don't have the same
Yeah.
level of energy. But she came to me at the end of 20, what year is this? 25. So the end of 2023. And she was like, and I have sat down with her no less than 10 times about nutrition.
Right.
Before this point. But she was like, all right, I'm serious now. I'm going to do this. And I just need your support. I'm like, I've got you.
Yeah.
I'll always have you. And she's down 100 pounds.
Wow.
So much that she just had to have surgery to have all this extra skin removed.
That's incredible.
And
that must just feel like such a huge like weight. I don't know how
oh
to
my
say
God,
it, but
like
that's a
I
lot
can't.
of
But
skin,
her
a lot
mindset is different.
Yeah, of course it is.
And everybody asked her all along the way, what changed? You know, you've been working out with Melanie forever. And she goes, I just finally started to listen. I got sick of being fat.
Right.
And I just started to listen. And the advice never changed. But like, that being said, I'm not going to give the same advice to my 22-year-old client that I'm giving to my perimenopausal 45-year-old client.
Right.
It's very different.
Right.
Our body responds differently to different things and different hormones, and our nutrition affects hormones differently, and our weight gain and weight loss differently as we age. And so the advice has to be different.
Right.
And so when you're going on social media and you Instagram and you see this influencer who's maybe been training for 2 years and has never taken a single nutrition course try to give you advice on how to fuel your 45-year-old menopausal body, so then you do what she did and then you're mad it's not working.
Right.
Well, consider your source.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
they probably
just
look like that anyway.
for real. Like, and you're not going to ever see me in a sports bra and bike shorts on my page. That's not happening. Like, I like to highlight my people, not me. So, like, they are my my proof of
your showcase.
Yeah, that's my showcase. You know, like, you know, that's why we have stories and reels and all of these things, because I want to show what can happen if you stick with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and the sense of pride that comes with that is amazing.
Right.
Like, and that's when I get like all mama bear and teary eyed and all of the things, because it's like, thank God, you know, thank God you found that within yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So,
all right, let me check my notes and see if we missed anything. What do you suggest? Well, two things. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start working out, but they're scared of like coming into a gym environment? And then what advice would you give to someone who feels like they've been in a plateau?
okay.
Those are two totally different.
Good. Both good questions. And I see this quite often. I actually get a lot of emails of people reaching out. They'll say, I've been following you for a year now. I just have been afraid to come because I'm overweight, or I haven't worked out in forever, and I'm a little bit intimidated by the environment. And I say, you just got to take that first step. This is a very warm
There's
place.
nowhere more welcoming, really.
It's
there really
so
isn't.
warm. It's so welcoming. Everybody is so kind. Our coaches are so smart. They're so knowledgeable, and which is uncommon, actually.
Yeah, and they all work out there.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I mean, they find value
uncommon.
in the workouts.
It's just uncommon to go somewhere where coaches know full-on anatomy of like the human body and what to do with it, and what to do with injuries and impingements. It's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
But no, we do get that one a lot, and I'm like, I say it's like with anything in life, you have to take that first step. You have to take that initial step. But you know, going into a box gym can maybe be a little bit more intimidating for someone and then they're just going to go right to the cardio equipment anyway.
Yeah, they're just going to
because they don't know what to do. And so they're going to go get on that
yeah.
stupid elliptical and do that for an hour.
For sure.
But I just say, you know, anything worth having is scary. Everything worth having is a leap of faith, just like you starting your business and me starting my business. And you just have to have enough in yourself to want to change. And whenever I respond to someone in the email, I say just that. You take that first step, you get through the door, we've got you from there.
Right.
And we do. And we really, truly do. You know, it's not just words. We don't do endless amounts of trials just to pack the house.
Right.
Like, we are very organic, where most of the people walk through our door off of word of mouth.
Right, sure.
You know,
Not a lot
like,
of
you joined
advertisement.
because you knew somebody else.
Right.
Right? Like, that's the way I want it.
Yeah.
That's the way I want it to be. So to the person that's terrified, go somewhere where knowledge is in abundance, where they can guarantee to also help you with your nutrition.
Yeah.
Those two
That's a big
things
piece.
have to go hand in hand.
Right.
Because you're not going to join a gym and get, a cookie cutter, here, eat this, and then get what you need in the long run. Like I say all the time, I'm like, I play the long game, not the quick fix. So I'm here to educate people on how to fuel. I'm here to educate people on how to lift properly and why it is so important for the aging body. Like, that's my end goal, is to make Midlothian the smartest it could possibly be, that if you have patience, this will work.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about a plateau? What do you suggest? For
A couple of things. Like, I actually will have people come in and be like, all right, I've been on this same deficit, and it's the same macro split that you gave me, and it was great. It was working. And now, like, I haven't lost any weight in a month.
Right.
Let's say a month. I'll say, okay, great. Let's get your measurements. Like, because you're identifying a plateau to the scale.
Right.
So
a lot of other factors.
A lot of other factors to take into account. So I'll measure them, and let's say nothing's moved. Then I'll say, okay, well, then what we're going to do is we're going to shake up your calorie deficit, and we're going to go 3 days in a deficit, 4 days at maintenance. And I want you to stay on this cycle now. So sometimes your body just needs more food, not less, but it needs more food to metabolically respond than it ever will if you take it away.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I don't ever say to someone, all right, well, let's eat 300 calories less a day and see what happens. And usually, so I'll have them do that for, like, let's say a month. I'll say, all right, let's hit your calorie deficit 3 days a week. Let's go to maintenance 4 days a week. Let's stay here for a month and see what happens. And then typically they'll come back and be like, all right, that was it. I'm down 3 pounds.
Right.
Or whatever.
You just need like a restart.
It's just something. Something has to change. Like, so whether it be like, let's say you're at a plateau and you don't feel like you're in the gym, like with weightlifting. You're in a plateau, like you can't get past 20-pound bicep curls. Like, you just can't. You can't get them up. You try to move to 22. Nothing's happening. You can't get up with a clean curl. I'm like, change your tempo. Let's reduce weight. Let's go high tempo.
Right.
More reps, same amount of time. Let's stick with this. Let's give it maybe 2 weeks. Change something.
Right. And then see if we can add like weight.
And then typically, your body has like fast twitch, slow twitch. It's got a whole lot of fibers, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just as asking for you to change something.
So do you have people that come in your gym who want to put on weight? Like,
oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a young gal right now. That's why I say it can't be the same advice.
Yeah.
Right? So
there's enough, the programming is so that you could.
There is nothing more bulletproof for like men, women, overweight women, young women, menopausal women, skinny women. There's nothing more consistent than strength training.
Right.
And there's nothing, I think, less intimidating. Right. I would be far more intimidated to walk into a gym that wanted me to do, that I look at the board and it's like 50 burpees, 10 this, 10 that. I'm like, no, shoot me now. Yeah. Like, no way. That to me is far more intimidating and less productive than, teaching someone how to lift properly and watching their body physically shrink down because muscle is leaner than fat. Like, so I think like as a whole, I've got guys that are looking to gain mass. So I've got them in a calorie surplus with a good macro split.
Yeah.
And that way they're not gaining fat.
Right.
They're gaining mass. Massive difference in those two statements.
Right.
So it's just education. It's always going to go back to education. You need to work out somewhere where people understand physiology, nutrition, injury prevention. And so it's like when I built my gym, I was like, That's my mission. That's my mission statement right there, to teach people how strong you can be doing it the right way from the inside out.
Right. That's awesome.
Whether or not they listen, that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, you can't. You only have.
You only have so much control. I'm like, you have to want this for yourself more than I want it for you. Because when that tempo switches, I've lost you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't follow people around and watch what they eat.
No, and it's very frustrating to see people not hit their goals. Yeah. It's very frustrating to see them quit on themselves. But we all have to be responsible for ourselves first. I tell every single person there, I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink.
Yeah.
So you have to be responsible for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming up on time, but why don't you tell how people can find you?
Okay.
Where you're located, how they can reach out.
Great. Yeah. We are off of Genito Road in Midlothian. I don't know if you have show notes, but we can put the address on show notes. We are back.
I don't know if we do either, but we can look and see.
Okay. Well, I'm going to obviously tag this. So, we are in an industrial park where a lot of people are familiar with it because Fame and Rise and it's huge on teen sports, and so there's a lot of traffic back there. We are it's big. It's actually quite a big
really
gym.
Big, yeah.
It's 8,000 square feet total.
Wow.
The whole building. The gym itself is 5,000 square feet. So, but we have Child Watch. We have all these other things. So, anyway, we have 2 social media pages. One is Facebook, and it's just All In Gym.
Okay.
And then we have an Instagram page, which is All In Gym _RVA, I believe.
Okay.
I might have gotten that wrong.
Okay.
I know, we can probably check.
On,
I don't know. I don't do our social media. So I have this amazing woman that takes care of all of that.
I saw.
Is it _RVA? Did I make that up?
It's All In Gym _RVA.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, good. So that's our Instagram page.
12727 Oak Lake.
Yeah,
Court.
12727 Oak Lake Court, and it is for women and men. Mm-hmm. It's predominantly strength training, so I heavily lean in. So we are open 6 days a week. 5 of those days are strength training. We have 1 athletic conditioning day where I go all out with the sleds and the tires, and I'm huge on kettlebells. Mm-hmm. That's what a big background for me.
You're still building strength while you're doing it.
So it's like I lean into more weight-bearing conditioning as opposed to body weight conditioning.
Right.
So we have 1 day a week where we throw some stuff around, and the other days are very strength focused, which I think is what makes it so good for Gen Pop, is that, I can have one of my guys, Neil, let's say, he's like on the trap bar crushing 400-pound, deadlifts.
Right.
But then I can have one of my gals next to her who's 65 and just, looking to fend off osteoporosis.
Right.
And they can live side by side.
Yeah.
And both get an amazing workout.
Yes.
So I think that's what makes strength training, I think, in general, is what makes it's literally for everyone. Mm-hmm. So, we have 2 pages. We have Facebook. We have Instagram. We have a website that has all the information. It has the coaches' bios on there. Okay. Camp times, what we offer, a lot
pricing
of background.
And all that stuff is
pricing
on there?
Is all on there. Yep. I don't do a whole lot of trials, but we always have a week trial for $10. Every once in a while, I probably do trials maybe twice a year, but I actually find that trials meaning come try us for 2 weeks or come try us for 3 weeks at this rate. It ends up being super overwhelming when you constantly are doing that to coaches. Yeah. Because you've got a lot of new faces all at once.
Right, and, instead of 1 or 2 new people.
Yeah, and I just really love the organic approach. I'd much rather focus on 1 or 2 new people a week as opposed to 30.
Right.
It's just not a good look because you've got a whole lot of people in there that have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. And how can one person get their hands on all those new people? Right. It's not happening. Yeah. Not safely. So, but we constantly have that 1 week trial for $10, and
that's a great deal.
Yeah. It just gives you an opportunity to come see what we're about, and if it's for you or not for you.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for
you.
being on today.
Thank you for having me on. It's fun.
Yeah, it was great seeing you.
Appreciate it. Come on back anytime.
I will.